Good afternoon, I'm Larry Steinhouse, and welcome to a special edition of Money Chat Now. Oh, you're going to love this absolute edition. It's amazing. I actually have a special guest today, and my special guest today is a highly controversial New Jersey radio host. He has awakened the woke and is doing all he can to help his fellow Americans, especially in New Jersey, to have more common sense. He led the fight. You ready for this? He led the fight against masks, especially on children, and he is never shy to hide his views on politics, crime, or the evil Dr. Fauci. He has helped shape elections in New Jersey and has even made a run for Congress. He hosts the #1 talk show host in New Jersey, and it's on FM. You believe that? He is also host of the Fox show Chasing News, which airs in Philadelphia and New Jersey. I want to welcome my friend, Bill Spadea. How are you, my friend?
Larry, great to see you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here, man. I am a big fan of yours.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I used to listen to you all the time, and then one day, actually, the way we met was one day I reached out. I found out that, you were, not going to get the vaccine. And I said, come use my studio, and that's how we met.
I think it actually started because you put up a huge billboard about the mask.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, like, who's this guy, right? Just to clarify, the show is no longer on Fox. I'm just doing the radio. I actually have now put my time into 2 other projects. We've got a great organization called Common Sense Club, commonsenseclub.org, and I've got a movie company, which I'd love to talk about a little bit.
Well, I can't wait to talk about it, but I got to ask you, because I mean, how does somebody become Bill Spadea? So I know that you used to be a real estate agent trainer, which is amazing to me, because I'm a real estate agent. I think we even worked for the same company at one time.
I worked for Jim Weicker for a long time.
There you go.
Jim is a great man, great family, great company. I loved real estate. Still am a broker. I'm still a broker in Massachusetts, New Jersey, Washington State. It happened by accident. I ended up meeting some guys at Fox. I did a couple interviews, hosted a show. So Chasing News was the show we had. Launched it, and it was cool because most of the show was done on cell phones, and it was totally innovative at the time. Grassroots journalism on cell phones, fantastic run. We had a 7-year run in New York, which was awesome. But I met the guys at 101.5, and I started doing some fill-ins for Steve Trevelise at night.
Yes.
One thing leads to another. All of a sudden, I'm hosting the morning show.
Actually. He's great, yeah.
Steve is great.
Yeah,
he's fantastic.
Guy,
normal guy, funny guy. We do a lot of comedy shows together. So, I've been fortunate to meet a ton of great people along the way. Worked with Steve and Joe Piscopo and some others, and it's great because there's a side of what we do. You know this. There's a side that is entertainment and a side that is serious. And in order to get the serious message across, you got to balance it so people will tune in.
Yes.
So our ratings have exploded, and I think part of the reason is I'm not a radio guy. I wasn't a TV guy either. I'd never worked in media before. I was a real estate guy. To me, it was about closing a deal, talking to people, making sure that agents were equipped with the ability to really wrap themselves with the customer and get the job done. And that was all about being normal. No sales pitchy
so now
stuff,
you
just
become
normal
the
conversation.
#1 guy in New Jersey.
Yeah, blew up. Really
It's amazing. I mean, when I walk down the street, I say, Bill Spadea, by the way, is coming. We're going to talk about the event later. Is coming to an event. I'm like, how'd you get that guy? I'm like, hey, I'm cool.
People respond to normal.
Right.
Larry, that's what it is.
Yeah.
To me, radio, I love radio because radio is, you are literally sitting in the passenger seat with the guy driving the car.
Yeah.
Now, with us, the app is blowing up. So our free New Jersey 101.5 app has gone crazy. We're now almost 20% of the audience.
That's amazing.
On the app now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But it's personal. It's one-on-one. You are really talking to one-on-one people. This Facebook Live is one thing, and you blast out to the audience. Television, you're talking to people you really don't know. They're in a bar, they're in the living room. It's very different. People get up, they walk away. Radio is a one-on-one conversation. So what I found through the entire lockdown nonsense is if you take the time to do the research, get the facts, and have the guts to talk about it, people respond to it because in their minds, none of this made sense from the beginning. So you talk about how do I get to be me? I've always been the same guy, right? I graduated from Boston University. I enlisted in the Marine Corps, which my parents thought was crazy because I had a college degree. And let me tell you, when you go to Paris Island with a college degree, you pay for it. I was in the best shape of my life, let me tell you. But it was a great experience, very normal. I grew up in a middle class house in New Jersey. With my dad was in manufacturing, my grandfather was in manufacturing. So I started working. I was 12 years old. and you learn a work ethic, and you learn to
absolutely.
relate to people.
Same thing with me.
normally, right?
It's funny because I have this school where I teach people how to invest and make more money, and I make the joke that I work 80 hours a week to teach people how not to work 40 hours a week.
Right.
It's almost comical.
But hard work is how you get there.
Absolutely.
So I get up at 3:30 in the morning, and when I was doing both, when we had the Chasing News overlapped with the radio show for a 7-year run, and it was getting up at 3:30, doing the radio show. We would start taping and writing and doing the editorial around 11 o'clock. So I was wearing a suit to do the radio broadcast. Now the great thing is, once the TV show was done, I can now be a little more relaxed.
You can wear
I throw a hoodie on. I throw a hoodie on in the morning.
When you're ready, man, you got to graduate to a jacket like this.
I need that jacket.
So I got a question. So how long have you been doing a radio show in New Jersey?
So I started with 101.5 in the summer of 2014, doing fill-ins, and I had a segment that they put on Jim Gerhardt's show. So a lot of people remember Jim Gerhardt, #1 guy, great guy, 25-year run. I mean, Jim Gerhardt made that station what it is.
Absolutely.
He was the guy that led the charge against Florio in 1993, and that was when the station really became the voice of the people. So I have taken up that charge with my show. Very different than Gerhardt's show, but similar theme, that somebody's got to speak truth to power, and somebody's got to give a voice to those that don't have it. And that's how I see my job. And I've been doing it now. So since 2014, I took over the morning show in 2015.
That's what I want to know. Okay, great. Yeah, okay.
September 2015.
Great. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's now 7 years.
Yeah.
That's
I'll be this summer. I'll be 8 years with the station, 7 years as the morning guy.
All right. So then all of a sudden COVID hits. And you become, and I've actually posted this the first time you were here. I said, who's more anti-mask, you or I? And I still don't know the answer. I mean, I realize that you have a much bigger audience than I do, but my billboard probably passed.
I think you have the edge, Larry. I did not put a billboard up. I didn't do that. Look, people do things because they want to make themselves feel better, and they don't want to buck the system.
Yes.
That's a big part of it. So when the powers that be started saying, get a mask on because you're going to save grandma, most people are not going to do the research. Most people are not going to say, well, I don't know, how bad is it? How hard is it? I remember one of the pundits came out on Twitter and said, people in New Jersey are not afraid to wear pants with sailboats on them and anchors. You can certainly wear a mask in a store.
That's funny.
Meaning trying to address it. I mean, look at that jacket, right? I love your jacket.
Sure.
You're not afraid to wear that? Why wouldn't you wear the mask? What they were missing was, it wasn't about being afraid to wear it. It wasn't about saying I'm not willing to do my part to stop the spread. It was about the fact that we knew early on that the mask did nothing to stop the spread. We've got proof up and down. First of all, we now know 1.8 million kids in Sweden were forced, people don't realize this, forced to stay in school. And not one of them died. In the entire season of 2020,
were they wearing masks?
Every kid, no masks,
yes, I thought,
no distance, and they went to school.
Yeah.
And the Swedes said, look, we recognized early on that this idea of focused protection on people who are vulnerable is the most important thing you can do. Healthy people were simply not vulnerable. Healthy children, absolutely not vulnerable.
Yeah.
So even today, here we are 2 years later. What do we know? We know that the viral cells are smaller than the openings in the mask. We know that. So it would be the equivalent of standing on the beach at the Jersey Shore and trying to stop the tide. You're not going to do it.
So I have to tell you a story, and I don't know if you know this, but I actually did an experiment with masks. Where I actually hired a doctor to come in and do an experiment. And the funny part was the doctor was pro-mask. And we did an experiment, and we proved that masks didn't work. It's actually, YouTube took it off.
I was going to say, wait a minute, that got taken down, right?
But I put it back on because it's on my site. If you ever want to go there, you actually should one day. Followtherealscience.com, which is kind of interesting. But kind of the mask thing is kind of. By the way, I want to mention to everybody online, if you want to leave comments, we can actually see the comments. So if you have a question or something, we can see your comments. And I see that it looks like Abraham said hi. So if you're online and you want to say hi, please say hi. If you want to ask Bill a question, feel free to ask Bill a question. We'll be able to see it.
Interactive.
There you go. If you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, or anything else, feel free to do that. All right. So now you become the greatest and the most important thing. And then I noticed what was happening in New Jersey was the governor run. And you were not too happy about the Republican pick.
So no, not at all. And let me preface this by saying I've been a lifelong New Jersey resident. You know, born and raised, born in Camden, grew up in Cherry Hill. I've lived in 5 different counties. I know the state through and through. Love the state, and I tell people all the time, I am digging in. I am here to stay. My biggest challenge is I've got a kid that lives in London, another one that lives in San Diego. How do I get them back to New Jersey? Because I can tell you right now, with the cost of living, with the environment, they're not coming back.
And who wants to go to a communist state anyway?
Well, this is the problem. So New Jersey has been off track for a long time. The challenge is that in order to address why I did not support the Republican nominee against Governor Murphy, it goes back to 1993 when Christie Todd Whitman took on Governor Florio. There wasn't anybody at the time, including myself, who didn't say, Florio's got to go. This guy passed a multi-billion-dollar tax hike in the middle of the night. And even though you can go back, and I've talked about this, analyzing the facts, that had that tax cut stayed in place, and Whitman, if she had lost that election, we might be solvent today as a state. Now, that's a controversial thing to say. You introduced me as a controversial guy.
Absolutely.
I'm as controversial to the Democrats as I am to the Republicans,
Sure.
because I'm a critical thinker. It's not about partisan politics. It's about the right solutions for normal, average people. So I go back to Christine Todd Whitman. She raided the pension funds, used that to pay for her tax cut. Well, economics 101, you don't have to pay for tax cuts. What you have to do is let them take hold and raise your revenue by creating prosperity. Anyway, bottom line, she wrecked the state, and it's been downhill ever since. Then Chris Christie comes in because Corzine was a disaster.
Chris
But Christie made it worse.
He disappointed me.
Made it worse.
I wasn't even living in New Jersey, but I watched this guy who was supposed to be the change of New Jersey, and I watched him destroy it, and he destroyed it, and he ruined it for Republicans in New Jersey.
This is part of the problem, that I have a long history with New Jersey and the party. So when you know over 20 years, you can predict what's going to happen. So we helped Chris Christie. I was happy to help him. 2009, he was the guy. He got in 2 years.
Was it Breakfast with the Governor? What was it called on your show?
No, I used to do, the governor, I used to do Digging In with Kim, which was in 2017 when Kim Guadagno, his lieutenant governor, ran against Murphy. But we did an Ask the Governor, and that lasted for years. And Chris, that's my news anchor, Eric Scott, who would host that. Now, this governor won't come on, doesn't have the guts to have the conversation.
Of course not. Who would want to talk? He'd be scared to talk to you.
Well, they don't want to debate the facts. The problem is that they're not grounded in facts. So I watched Chris Christie balloon the debt, cut the deal with the NJEA, literally made the teachers union more powerful. The problem with the masks and the vaccine segregation and everything else, I blame Chris Christie and Steve Sweeney. They got together in 2011, cut a deal, made the unions more powerful. It was a disaster. And they didn't help the individual teachers. The individual teachers are still suffering, still looking for more money, still deserving of more money in many cases. All right, so fast forward, here we have the Republican nominee against Governor Murphy. Governor Murphy, an outright disaster. So I went to Jack, the Republican nominee, and I said, look, here are a couple things that people who are conservative, family people, small business owners, they need to hear from you. It has to be more than, I'm not Phil Murphy, because we've been burned. We got burned by Whitman, we got burned by Christie. So why are you different? Would not commit to anything. I wrote an article with the 6 things that he needs to do, didn't commit to one of them. Something as simple, Larry, literally this simple. It was, it's amazing. It's amazing this didn't happen. There was a rally, the firefighters in Newark, were the firefighters union in Newark were fighting back against the mayor who was forcing them to get vaccinated. Now, I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist, but I can tell you this. If a firefighter shows up at your house to put out a fire, I'm pretty certain you're not going to ask for their vaccine.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I'm going out on a limb here, but
I'm also thinking that oxygen mask is probably much more powerful than a plastic paper mask. Yeah, right.
Ridiculous, right? So the firefighters were now being faced with termination if they didn't get vaccinated. With no
police, by the way, too.
Same thing with the cops, but with the firefighters in Newark, they were offered no exemptions. There were no religious exemptions, no medical exemptions. So they're saying, well, wait a minute, this is unfair to a big portion of these guys. So they had this rally. They called the show a couple weeks before. I promoted the rally, pushed it, said, great, this has got to do. So the Jack folks asked, well, what do you think? I said, you got to go to this rally. As a matter of fact, I now know they'll let you speak, show up. What happens? They show up after the rally ends and then blame me for not letting them know that it was, you couldn't make this up if you tried. So the point is that he was a coward and wouldn't stand with the firefighters in Newark, wouldn't stand with the parents on the masks and the vaccine mandates. even a simple issue. There was a $9 million subsidy from the state to Planned Parenthood. And I said, forgetting this as an issue of pro-life or pro-choice, don't have the abortion debate. But go back to when Chris Christie was governor and he redlined that out, that $9 million. Why? Because Planned Parenthood is one of the best funded organizations in the country. The last thing they need is $9 million from New Jersey taxpayers. I said, this is a fiscal issue.
Sure.
Refused to do it. His answer was, maybe we'll spend more money on crisis pregnancy
centers. He thought he'd be losing votes, which is a mistake. He actually would have been getting votes.
Let me tell you something. We had a less than 40% turnout. And in cases like Senator Mike Testa in South Jersey and others who won big, they outpaced the top of the ticket. Top of the ticket claims that they rallied this red wave. No, they didn't. We had hundreds, I'm telling you, Larry, hundreds of moms and dads running for school board, running for mayor, running for council. So many of them won across the board. We had new state senators, new members of the assembly, all running against the mask mandates, against the vaccine mandates. The reality is the message that I pushed on the radio was a message that was being heard and was believed by most people in New Jersey. The problem is when the top of the ticket basically slaps them in the face and says, you don't know, we're going to talk about taxes because our safe polling says talk about taxes, you're not going to lead the charge. You look at the contrast. Glenn Youngkin wins in Virginia. Why? He stood with the parents. He stood with the parents, he stood with the small businesses, and he pledged to act. And what's interesting is he wasn't a big Trump guy either. Nobody understands that. They thought, oh, Virginia's a Trump state. Not even close.
All right, real quick.
It was a parent state.
I know what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you love to talk.
I know. We'll be here for hours.
Exactly. And I do too, by the way. And I love to listen to you.
What did I tell you before? You got to cut me off.
Exactly. So I did. But I got to ask you a question. So real quick, what do you think of Biden?
I'm going to need a little more time than that. I'm going to need a little more time. Honestly, in a very serious thing, there are two problems with Joe Biden. Number one, I don't think he has the mental capacity to be president. And I'm saying that nice. Honestly, the guy comes off as not only a doddering fool, but he's like the crazy uncle that sits in the corner talking to himself during a Thanksgiving dinner. How is this guy president? How the media covers for this man is incredible to me. They were talking about the 25th Amendment being invoked with Donald Trump because of mean tweets. Now you have a bona fide problem, a guy that does not have the mental capacity to be president, and he's making decisions. This guy is trying to, in my opinion, drag us into war in Eastern Europe. There's no reason for it. He is absolutely responsible for the spike in gas prices, desperately trying to blame Putin, ignoring the fact that since he took office, gas prices are up 40%. Long before Putin ever eyed up Ukraine.
And it's funny, so I got to show you something.
Mess.
So you've heard the expression, let's go Brandon, right? You got to see, and I don't know if you've seen my truck yet, but you got to see this. I'm gonna see if my guys can put it up. Hey, Mike, I don't know if you can put this up, but you got to see a picture of this. This thing is absolutely hysterical. I actually went and I wrapped my truck. So okay, take a look. There it is. Is that the most amazing thing? You can take a look. That's my car. I drive around with that. And
like I said, the billboard, the car, you're definitely way beyond where I am with this stuff. But it is a serious point that how do you have a president that is clearly not in charge? And that's a frightening thing. And when you see it with the rollout of 5G, total disaster. They never checked with the international community on the airlines coming in. They killed the Keystone Pipeline. They took away the permits for drilling. And now he's releasing the strategic reserve to try to get control over gas prices. All he needs to do is let the oil companies get out there and start drilling again.
Yeah, I actually talked about that this morning. So that the strategic supply, his goal is he's going to release he's going to 1 million barrels a day. In 6 months. That would, now, assuming it's at maximum capacity, which it's not. I'll tell you something funny about that, too. We just had a little bit of an error, and we're going to have our guy come in here and fix this real quick. I tell you what, why don't you do this real quick? Can you run a commercial real quick for that, and we could come in and fix it?
Did I disappear? Is that
you disappeared.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, they can still hear me.
That's all. Look, I do radio. You're not looking at me.
Yeah, so you know what? Why don't you put me in, and then you can come in here. Put me up, so that way people can see it. There you go. Beautiful. All right, so I'll continue my conversation with you while he comes here and fixes it. Okay, so real quick. So, if they release 100, that's 180 million barrels.
Right.
That's 1/3 of, or a little less than 1/3 of the reserves, right?
Right.
Now, those reserves, assuming that would be 2 years of at that release rate.
That's right.
So at that release rate, that means in 2 years. Now, if we really need those reserves, we're in deep trouble. I actually talked about it on my radio show this morning.
You're right about that, Larry. And the problem is that it's a self-inflicted wound.
Yes.
By canceling the pipeline, by denying the new permits, he has taken an all-out war against the gas industry, the oil industry. You're not going to overnight produce that capacity if we open up the drilling permits. But over the course of months and the next year, you're going to get control. My God, we had energy independence under Donald Trump. Now we're talking about buying our oil from terrorist-supporting regimes. It never had to happen.
Sure.
We should be drilling in Anwar. We should open up the pipeline. I've said this specifically in New Jersey. One of the things that's missing, we've got 75% of the households in New Jersey which are powered by natural gas. We should be investing in that infrastructure. New Jersey needs two things for our power grid. One, we need the upgraded infrastructure to transport through pipelines throughout the state of New Jersey because it's safer than transporting gas on trucks, number one. Nothing against our truckers.
Absolutely.
They got other things to
Tell you what,
want me to move?
scoot over here. Just join me right here. Get real close to me. I mean, I want to be close to one of the biggest stars. There you go. Look at that. We're just look at that. Pretty soon they're going to call us them and they.
All right, no pronouns. That's it. Ridiculous. Right? World's upside down, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, but if you look at that, and then you look at nuclear power, and we've got an enormous problem in New Jersey where you've got a potential to add 2 or 3 nuclear power plants that not only could you power the entire state of New Jersey, but you could be exporting energy to other states.
Sure.
You could create a tax rebate for New Jersey residents just by increasing the power capacity that we develop in our state. We should be exporting natural gas. We should be exporting energy to the grid to the other states. So these are practical, common sense ideas that the politicians don't pick up because they're not popular because you've got to explain it. And politics has devolved into sound bites, commercials, and tweets.
Yep.
And what it needs to be is leadership and exercise the ability to talk to people about how you'd solve the problem. You know, when one of the things I said to the Republican nominees, I said, you ought to be talking about mobilizing the National Guard to unload these containers because we don't have enough staff and support and workers to do it. Mobilize them. Get it done. This is, leadership takes many forms. If you look at the victory of Glenn Youngkin, and then you look at Florida, where Ron DeSantis won, people say, well, it's a Trump state. Not at all. Ron DeSantis won by about 10,000 votes.
Actually, it was a Democrat state for a long time.
I know. This is the first time that now Republican registration outnumbers Democrat registration. DeSantis won by the skin of his teeth. And what did he do? He won by being honest with people. He won by saying, I'm going to protect children. He won by saying, I'm going to use science and facts. And he is now poised to win re-election big.
All right.
Big.
This is what I want you to do. I want you to talk to me about this thing that you have, which is called the Common Sense Club, because I am amazed by this. Actually, we talked about this a couple of times, and I want you to tell everybody about it. So tell me about what it is and what it's like and what it's going to do for people.
So here's the bottom line with the Common Sense Club. There is no infrastructure for common sense ideas in New Jersey. The Republican Party has failed for 20 years and their numbers have shrunk. It's a disaster. So we took this concept and I said, all right, I've been on the radio for almost 8 years now, and during the lockdowns, our market share more than doubled. Now, that didn't happen because I'm a great radio host. That happened because the ideas are resonating with normal people.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Listen to that voice. Is he a great radio host?
Well, thank you, but I literally was not even looking for a compliment. But I mean it. It really is about ideas that will work to reduce the cost of living for average people, empower them so they can protect their kids, get involved in their kids' education, all these things. So we said, all right, how do you take this huge audience and energize and organize so we can actually get something done? So we started Common Sense Club, and the numbers are through the roof at the time. As we're talking live on Facebook right now, we are nearing 30,000 members. We're signing up 1,800 people every week.
How did you get 30,000 members
amazing, right?
to go to Common Sense Club? Now, let me ask you a question, though. Are these all nuts?
There aren't that many nuts. No, these are
Well,
moms. No, seriously.
I'm saying,
no.
I mean, I'm being funny, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because you got the Democrats going, these Republican nuts. No, they're not. They're average people like you and I. Well, we're
let me
not
tell you who
average,
they are.
are we?
We may not be, but let me say this: this is not some right-wing group.
Move over there.
Yeah, this is not some right-wing group. This is not some radical ideological group.
Right.
The Common Sense Club is a 501c4, which means we are an educational group, and our purpose is to mobilize voters, educate voters, and pressure lawmakers to adopt common sense policies. So we have two things that we launched on. The first is parental rights. So we literally have a parental bill of rights that is now going to be sponsored in the state Senate and in the state Assembly. We're working with about 8 legislators on both sides of the Assembly and the Senate. No Democrats yet, and it's a shame because the opportunity for the Democrats to come on, they're missing the point. The Democratic Party has lost and is losing at a very frequent pace their base. When you take a janitor, take a guy that is Hispanic or black, you would consider that guy, blue-collar worker, a part of a natural Democratic base. At least the Democrats will tell you that. They'll tell you, if you're a person of color, you can't vote for the Republicans because they don't speak for you.
Of course.
So you've got a guy that works for a hospital that loses his job because he's not vaccinated. That was the Democrats that did that. And when you look at this opportunity for the Republican Party, it's right there. There are hundreds of thousands, millions. There are 2.2 million unaffiliated voters in New Jersey. So we look at that and said, why was the turnout less than 40% in the last gubernatorial race? Why did local candidates outpace the top of the ticket? Very simple. People want common sense ideas. They want solutions. They want to know that their energy costs are going to come down. They want to know they can stop their kid from getting an experimental jab that they don't need. They want to know that they can keep the masks off their kids. They want to know that they can afford to retire here. They want to know that they can afford college and a car payment and all these things. And you've got a legislature that plays games. They virtue signal by passing a divestment bill with Russian assets. Well, okay, that was smart. Yeah, guess what? First of all, it's a tiny, tiny percentage of our investments. Second of all, it's going to cost the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars to go root through all these investments to find the $100 investment over here, the $1,000 over here. Absolute madness. So people are responding because I'm on the radio with a growing audience. We've got a great presence on social media. We set up commonsenseclub.org where people can go and sign up. And people are saying it's beyond listening on the radio and hearing it and saying, oh, that guy agrees with me. It's now I can act. So a couple of things. We set up a...
So real quick, before you go, we have a really cool QR code that you gave us. So I want to let everybody see this QR code. Listen,
that was our
team
that thought it was a good idea to put my face in it.
I just want to do a couple of things real quick. So we have some questions online. I'm going to get a chance to ask those real quick if we can. By the way, a whole bunch of people are saying some really cool things about you. They loved your interview about Chris Christie, about gas taxes. A couple of people saying love you, Bill. Nobody's saying love you, Larry.
That's all right.
You know,
they're intimidated by the jacket.
You know, Carrie says hi. Tom says figures lie and liars. You know, so they're talking about figures lie. They don't give you any numbers at all. Yeah, of course, okay. And these guys are going all back and forth. This is great. Peter, and Peter actually is a friend of yours. He put up the link. So if you guys are looking on Facebook, there's actually the link. You can go there, or you can actually go right now, click the QR code. I have to tell you, I think I'm going to tell people I'm a founding member, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay, good.
It's up to you.
So I am a founding member of the Common Sense Club. Now, understand, I live in Pennsylvania, but I believe in these values so much that I'm helping Bill with this because I believe it should be done. Not only is this going to move into, of course, it's going to move into New Jersey, but it's going to move into Pennsylvania as well. As you guys know, Bill is also going to be speaking at our event. We have a Freedom and Finances event, which is coming up on April 24th, and he's going to be talking about this. And I'm going to be introducing Bill. Check this out. You guys are going to find this interesting. I'm actually going to be introducing Bill to Doug Mastriano, who we all know is basically, except for the fact that he's not on radio, but if you've seen Doug Mastriano, you've seen him do his fireside chats every day or every night or every week on Facebook. It's almost the same guy. These guys are so much alike, and they've never met each other. And I'm actually going to make this the opportunity for them to meet each other, and they're both excited about meeting each other. But we're going to be doing this event. So if you want to go to 4mmw.com, you're going to type in the number 4mmw.com, and you could be there. You'll be able to meet Bill. You'll be able to meet Doug. Now, I know I interrupted you, but I wanted to make sure that we had enough time. I just want to see if there's anything else. But but there's so many people up here.
I know
we
we're
got a lot
running
of fans, man.
Well, I appreciate everybody who's making comments, and let me just say this. So tomorrow morning, as we're live today on Friday, April 1st, happy April Fool's Day. Tomorrow, April 2nd, I'll be, yeah, exactly, right? I love that. I'll be at the Town and Country Inn in Keyport, New Jersey, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, where we're rolling out the parental Bill of Rights. And with that QR code that you saw earlier, you can go to commonsenseclub.org, you can go to the link that's now in this thread, and you can become a citizen signer of this bill. That's something that hasn't been done before. So we are expecting, not only will people sign up, but then it alerts their legislators that, hey, I've joined the Common Sense Club, I support the Parental Bill of Rights, and it's very simple. It's about giving power back to parents, getting rid of CRT, this ridiculous racism that's going on in our schools, the idea that we've got radical groups that have sexualized grade school instruction. The fact that we were talking about sex acts in first, second, third grade, outrageous. And let me tell you guys, and you probably know this if you're listening to me now, if you're new, let me say this. They're lying about what happened in Florida. It's not a don't say gay bill.
Of course.
What it is an anti-grooming the grade school bill. They are taking the radical sex advocates out of the schools, saying kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, off limits. We need that in New Jersey. We're fighting it with the Parental Bill of Rights. We're going to get it introduced in the legislature in the next couple of weeks. And what we're hoping is people will click on the QR code, and then automatically we're going to be able to send a note to each of your legislators to say, hey, you got to get on board. And let me tell you this, they respond. They respond. When you get thousands of moms and dads that say, I've had enough, I'm fighting back. Yeah. They're my kids. I need to be involved. Absolutely. Yeah. So we need your support for this. Click on the QR code. Join me in this fight. We are fighting on two fronts with the Common Sense Club. One, to empower parents, and two, to empower small business. So maybe next time we do this show, we'll talk about the Small Business Protection Act that we're also pushing.
So I had a good time here today, man.
Yeah, me too.
It was awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's do this.
Guys.
Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. If you guys want to, by the way, this is going to be up for a while. If you guys want to share it with your friends, please feel free to do that. The repeats will be up there. If you guys have never heard of Bill Spadea before, now you did. If you never heard of me before, I'm Larry Steinhouse. We are so happy you're here, and we are looking forward to seeing you. You can listen to Bill in New Jersey. Since you said the station 5 times, it's 101.5.
New Jersey 101.5 FM. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook
at
Bill Spadea.
7:30. If you're at Bucks County, you have to change it to WWDB AM and listen to me, and then 8 o'clock you can listen back to Bill, okay? All right, guys, we will see you. Thanks so much for watching.